Welcome to another episode of the Burg Podcast, where we talk about all things Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I'm your host, Justin Suarez. Also known as the Hub City, or just the Burg, Hattiesburg is a bustling town in southern Mississippi. It's an educational, cultural, business, and medical hub for the region, and we're pleased to share stories from our community. On today's episode of the Burg Podcast, we have two interviews with prominent USM English professors who have taken their love of literature to the next level. We also have two audio essays. In our first interview, Emily Rutland sits down with the guest editor of the Mississippi Review, who discusses the world of publishing.
I'm Emily Rutland for the Burg Podcast. Today, I'm interviewing Dr. Rachel Fowler. My guest is an assistant teaching professor at the University of Southern Mississippi, with her fiction published with multiple literary magazines like the Literary Review and North American Review's Open Space. Currently, she is the guest editor for the Mississippi Review, a literary journal headed by USM's creative writing faculty. Dr. Fowler, thank you for being with us today.
I'm happy to be here.
So, to start off, how did you first get involved with publishing?
So my first entrance into publishing was actually as an undergraduate student. I was an undergrad at the University of South Alabama in Mobile, Alabama. And I think when I was a freshman or sophomore, I took a communications class and I wrote a 2.5-page essay. And my teacher submitted it to the literary journal there. And they reached out and said they wanted to publish it. So that was how I first learned about what literary journals are.
Interesting. So what made you stick to publishing and things like that?
Yeah. So after I had that piece published, I got interested in being on the other side of that literary journal. It's called the Oracle Fine Arts Review. It's actually really cool because it's like a printed literary journal that is run by students at South Alabama. And student-run journals aren't always printed. They're usually just kind of posted online. So we had a lot of funding to print it. And I had been published in it, but I wanted to see what it was like on the other side of the magazine. So I think first I was just a reader for maybe fiction and nonfiction. And then when I was a senior, I was the editor-in-chief of that literary journal. And that kind of got me into it and led me to an internship with Negative Capability Press that's run by Dr. Sue Walker in Mobile. And that kind of pushed me more into an independent press situation, but kept me in the publishing world.
Cool. So how did you become the guest editor for the Mississippi Review?
Great question. So when I finished my master's at South Alabama, I came to USM to do a PhD in creative writing, and I focused on fiction. And as a graduate student, you usually have an assistantship, so you're either teaching or do some other form of service for the department, and that helps pay for your degree. And so part of my assistantship was as the GA, or the graduate student assistant for the Mississippi Review. And so I did that for 3 years as a graduate student. And then I kept teaching here as a faculty member after I graduated. And just kind of lucked into the guest editor position. Adam Clay, who is the most recent editor of the journal, was offered this really amazing job at LSU, and he took it. And so I just kind of stepped in with the experience I had learning from him as an editor. And that's how I got here to the guest editor position.
That's so cool. So what kind of background, other than what you already said, what kind of background did you have before that kind of prepared you for this position?
For the editor position?
Yeah.
I think that trying to be published in literary journals was really good preparation because, literary journals are really great spaces for emerging writers, and I'm still emerging. A lot of us don't have the resources to get exposure, to get noticed by an agent, or to get a foot in the door at a really prestigious independent press or a big 5 publisher. And I think being on this side as a writer, I realize how important literary journals are to all of our careers and our community, our literary community. And I try to bring that into being on the opposite side as the editor, to keep in mind that all of these people who are submitting work, they're just like me. We're all trying to do the same thing. I'm submitting work to other journals as I'm editing this one. And so I think that kind of framed my role as it's more like a service than it is a job to offer this to other writers and to get to open a door for them in their work.
Got you. So next up, what does being a guest editor look like?
Like, what is a day-to-day for a
Yeah.
guest editor? So there is no, like, I'm still learning this too. There is no, like, regular day. I think it's more like there are movements in a semester. And so we're a literary journal funded by a school. So we do kind of follow an academic schedule. But first, what we'll do is we'll put out a call for submissions, and we'll receive all of those from many, many writers and start reading through them. And I work with two assistant editors. They are both graduate assistants. And so we read through everything, we choose the pieces we want to publish, and then we start working with the contributors to edit those pieces. I did all of that as a graduate student, but I'm realizing now there's so much more to, like, the business of producing the journal. And we do produce Mississippi Review as a print journal. So I'm also, while we're, like, working with contributors, talking with the printer and, like, getting quotes for how much is this going to cost, and working with a cover designer and kind of getting ideas for what we want it to look like and how we can make that happen. And then after all of that comes together, we still have all of the publicity, which is, like, distributing our issues and working on social media and, like, going to festivals like the Mississippi Book Festival or, like, AWP, which is more like a national conference. And this year's is in LA, and we'll be going there at the end of March. So, yeah, we're excited for that. Yeah.
How do you, so with all of that in mind that you just discussed, how do you balance all that with being a professor as well?
With a lot of patience. So I think it was a really great honor and also a really great challenge to be given the guest editor position. And I'm also teaching 3 classes. So I'm trying to sort of see everything that being a guest editor entails and to balance that with teaching. I found that it's best for me to kind of compartmentalize. And, like, the days that I'm teaching, like this semester is Monday, Wednesday, I try to only do my teaching stuff on Monday, Wednesdays, maybe Sundays. And then I save the other days for the other work, like the Mississippi Review or, like, my own writing. And for me, that works well to compartmentalize it by days. But I also think that it's really important when you have something that's challenging to be kind to yourself and realize, like, this could be overwhelming at moments, but, you know, like, I've had overwhelming moments before and I've gotten through them, and usually better once I get through them. So I think it's really, like, it's still a learning experience for me. I'm just trying to be, like, kind and patient with myself as I balance. Yeah.
Got you. And so continuing on with your position currently, what does it mean to you to be able to work on a literary magazine that's been going on since 1972? That's a while.
Yeah, oh my God. It's like, I kind of don't believe it. It's like, it's really crazy, actually. And, like, I knew about the Mississippi Review when I was an undergrad, like when I first started taking workshops, and, like, I would see them printed and I would think, oh wow, like, maybe one day I'll get to be in that. And it was a really great part of my PhD to get to work on it as a graduate student. I learned a lot as an editor and as a writer. Excuse me, my voice is cracking. Give me one second. Okay. So, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. What does it mean to work on a literary magazine?
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Great. Yeah. Thank you. So, it's easy to balance stuff when I have people like you to help me out with this. So I grew up kind of knowing about the journal and hoping that I would have, like, some place with it at some time. And, like, the recent editor, Adam Clay, Angela Ball, who's also still in the Center for Writers faculty, was also an editor. And then you have these huge names like Frederick Bartholomew or Steve Bartholomew, and those are just, like, really big names in the literary world. And so it's really nice to kind of get to be a part of that lineage and to try to continue what they started. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so this is more about, like, the printed issue currently. Sure. So I was curious, how do you decide on the theme or the look of Mississippi Review?
Yeah. So the most recent issue that we just got shipped in is the art issue. And we specifically called for submissions that had to do with other forms of art somehow. And that's just part of my own writing and, like, academic interests. So that's how we came up with that theme. But when we think about covers, Usually there's like, when this organically happens, it's really great. We look at the pieces we want to publish, and a lot of times there's like a conversation happening between them. Like the issue we're reading for right now, we have a kind of tentative table of contents, and we've noticed like similar images of like birds and oddly like avocados and eggs, and we were like, that's really weird that we've like organically found these pieces that have like echoes across each other. They also are a lot about like nature and motherhood, so that's like we've just like taking notes of those themes. And when we start working with our cover designer, his name is Cody Bass. He actually used to live here in Hattiesburg, and he's a really, really amazing artist. We'll like pitch those themes to him, and he'll like run with it and give us ideas for the cover. Yeah.
So one more question that I have for you is, what would you recommend to students who are curious or interested in publishing?
Ooh, this is a great question. I would say first take the opportunities that are near to you. So like if you're fortunate enough to be at an institution that does have some kind of literary journal, whether it's student run or like faculty run, we're usually like really small staffs. We're like a skeleton crew, and we're looking for people who want to help. So it's always good to take those opportunities, like if they're looking for readers, to jump into it and do it. But if you're like in a position where you don't have local resources like that, there are a lot of literary journals out there, and if you just start researching them and get on their email list, like there could be a journal in like California that's looking for intro level readers, right? And if you're on their email list, then you know when they're looking for those things, and you can reach out and say, yeah, I'd love to jump in. And I think that's the best way to kind of like get your foot in the door, see what's happening.
Gotcha. That's great advice. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. I'm Emily Rutland for the Burg Podcast.
In our next interview, Clara Cadle talks to a local poetry professor about teaching and writing poetry.
I'm Claire Cadle for the Burg Podcast. Today I'm interviewing Angela Ball. My guest poems, translations, and essays have appeared or are forthcoming in Boulevard Poetry, the Paris Review, the Atlantic Monthly, Plowshares, the North American Review, the Partisan Review, the New Yorker, Grand Street, Field, Colorado Review, the New Republic, the Bennington Review, Three Penny Review, and elsewhere. Her most recent books of poetry are Talking Pillow and Clay Statue, forthcoming from the University of Pittsburgh Press in 2026. Her anthology of poems plus commentary, Afterlives of the New York School of Poets, will appear from Routledge in 2026. The recipient of an individual artist grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, she teaches in the Center for Writers, part of the School of Humanities at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg, where she lives with her dogs, Miss Bishop and Boy. Angela, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, what inspires you most, would you say, as a writer?
Literature. Not just poetry, but also nonfiction and fiction. And I never know what I might be inspired by next. Could be a newspaper article. It could be an essay. A short story. Images kind of stick in my mind and haunt me, and sometimes I write about them. I think one that was important to me was an image in a William Trevor short story of a dog just floating on a raft by itself, and it was being pulled out to sea. And I think it inspired a poem called My Half-Sister Who Floated Out to Sea.
So, can you kind of describe like your writing process? Like you see that and then you just have the idea. How does that all work for you?
I don't think I could describe it coherently. I don't think it's an organized process exactly. I have to be interested or excited about a thing in order to write about it. I think that's true of everybody in all kinds of writing. So something kind of strikes my eye and gets me interested, and I start talking about it, usually on a computer computer screen. I used to write by hand a lot, and now I write mostly on my laptop. Maybe I like the words that I've put down, and that enthusiasm generates more words. And if there's enough energy or enough interest in me, the rest of the poem comes. Sometimes I write something that almost kind of makes me feel a little bit nauseated, like, I don't like this, but I might come back to it later, and it's like it opens up, and I find another way to use that language to maybe turn it on its head and make it interesting. And I like that a whole lot. Obviously, I think anybody does.
So how do you stay motivated during periods of maybe like a creative drought where it's just like you aren't having, like, I guess, writer's block? How do you deal with that process?
Well, I don't really believe in writer's block. I believe in things interfering or being allowed to interfere. I try not to let that happen. Sometimes I'm just so tired from working so long on other things that I know I just need to get a good night's sleep and work in the morning. But usually I can just start thinking about things, maybe see an article about a strange blood disease that I want to write about, or I read somebody's poem and it just makes me really want to write a poem myself. So I start writing it. I'm seldom in a state, unless it's exhaustion, as I mentioned, in which I can't write anything. And as I said, sometimes I'll write something I don't like, but I can maybe come back to it later or not. Of course, I have a lot of false starts and connections that don't gel, but I never tire that feeling of revelation when I find myself saying something that surprises me.
So are there any particular themes or topics that you find yourself coming back to a lot within your writing?
I think the theme of the disorientation of everyday life. Somebody once said that my poems are surreal. I don't quite agree with that. I think experience is the thing that's surreal, that is all kind of mixed up with itself and with dreams and mistakes and happenstance. And I like for my poems to reflect some of that chaos and randomness, but mostly what I like them to reflect is the impossibility of ever knowing.
So how do you know when a poem's finished and ready to be added to a book or shared with the world?
It feels right to me. I don't necessarily know that it's right, because I don't believe we know things, but my instinct tells me it's in good shape and it's ready to go.
Are there any poets or writers who've influenced your style of writing or just inspire you in general?
Oh, lots and lots. A colleague of mine, Christopher Spade, talked today about his research into the archives of Seamus Heaney. He's definitely somebody who has helped me write. I wrote a poem in the voice of Nora Joyce that was very much helped by reading Seamus Heaney and trying to learn an Irish inflection from his work. There's so many. Elizabeth Bishop is a big inspirer, if that's a word, of my work. And so is Anna Akhmatova, the great Russian poet who was so brave and so good at writing about the state of things in Soviet Russia, the tragedies that were occurring every day. But I'm also inspired a lot by humorous poetry and very inspired by the big four of the original New York School of poets. There's John Ashbery, there's Kenneth Koch, Frank O'Hara and James Schuyler. They all inspire me in various ways, and they got me interested in writing about how contemporary poetry has been influenced by their aesthetic and their belief that life is too important to be messed up by over seriousness. Solemnity is a big evil in poetry, according to them, or can be, over solemnity. And that spirit of playfulness, I hope, is always part of my work.
So is there a specific poem or piece of writing that you've done yourself that you just feel especially proud of, maybe a little more than others, or like a group of poems maybe?
Well, my manuscript that was just accepted, clay statue, is something I'm very proud of. And I think the poems hold together and are interesting together, and I think they all have a sense of humor of some kind, and also a sense of life's possibilities and mysteries being ever present, and musicality, the sound of the language, the sound of a sentence. Poetry is made of sentences. W.S. Merwin said that, and I think other people have said it as well. It's a really good adage to remember. So if you think you can't write a poem, think, I can write a sentence, and then you can just start writing your sentences. And somebody else, I believe Ezra Pound, said a poem has to be at least as well written as good prose. So I need to tell my students that a little more, especially undergrads, because they don't have as strong a language ethic as perhaps they'll develop as they get a little older.
Do you believe that writing poetry is something that can be taught, or do you think it's a talent that needs to be exercised?
No, I no to both. No to both, but and maybe yes to some blend of the two. I think lots of things can be taught that go into poetry. A love of reading is necessary for a poet. A poet has to read a whole lot. Richard Howard said, "Read or fail." So I can encourage students to read. I can also help them recognize cliches and tired language of various kinds, tired ways of looking at the world that have been assumed by others many, many times before, and try to get them to look at things through their own eyes and not secondhand. And those things can be taught. Editing can be taught. Ugly language can be recognized after some experience with it. Poets can develop an ear. I think that's largely done through reading, developing an ear for a good sounding sentence. A lot of the components of poetry can't be taught directly, but they can come together once a poet develops some of the things that can be taught. I think sports is a good analogy. Can playing basketball be taught? Well, yeah, but a large part of it is individual intuition, an ability to tap in to what your teammates are doing, an ability to get to develop the skill of being in the zone. I think there's a kind of zone of poetry that one needs to get into, And you can't teach somebody how to get there, but you can help them get there or help increase the chances that they'll get there. Just developing a work ethic about poems, writing something every day is very helpful toward that.
So what do you think is probably one of the most surprising places or situations where you found inspiration for a poem that you later wrote?
Maybe a car body shop. And my car being painted.
Mm-hmm.
It was in terrible shape, I think, because of the harsh climate here. All the sunlight, it had metallic paint. And I just imagined it enjoying all the brush strokes and the process of being brought back to life in a way. So that was pretty unlikely. Also, I have a poem that involves Ron Popeil, the late inventor of the pocket fisherman, and the chicken rotisserie. I think that's kind of unlikely.
So what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone just starting out their career with writing poetry or just a literary career in general?
Read. Read a whole lot. Develop favorites. Try to go to readings. Try to take classes if you can. Learn about yourself through writing things down. Develop your strengths. You may find that you are better at writing a certain genre than another, so pursue that, but don't be blind to the possibilities that other genres can give you. Be open to the world and be willing to work.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for talking with us. I'm Claire Cadle for the Burg Podcast.
In our first audio essay, Emily Rutland explores the dreaded audition and how she overcame this nerve-wracking experience.
Anyone who says auditioning is easy is lying to you. Don't believe me? Follow me for a bit. You start out sitting in a waiting room. It's packed. One girl is humming directly in your ear. Another guy mumbles a monologue under his breath. Someone is stretching in the chair in front of you, and you know this is not a dance audition. Or is it? Then the doubts come in. Should you be practicing too? Did you even practice enough? What if you forget everything on stage? But before you could even consider going to the bathroom to at least say your lines in the mirror, your name is called. It's time to go on. No one speaks when you are walking to the stage. They only watch, like you're some stack of meat and they're a pack of tap-dancing jackals. That is until you finally stand center stage. Oh, the director says some nice things, asking you how you're doing, and you say you're fine, but you're not fine because you have to audition. And after introducing yourself, you perform. You act, you sing, and you don't remember a single thing until you find yourself back in the parking lot of the theater. This is how I felt every single time I've had an audition. It's terrifying having to perform for a group of people you don't even know, so you can be cast in a production. And it never gets easier. Time and time again, I have had to fight my own insecurities when being on stage. I overthink and get stuck in my head. But once I overcome that hurdle, a whole other world opens up. I've been performing for about 10 years, and I've been cast all over the sun. From Amelia Earhart's mother, to a crazed principal with a zombie as a son, to my personal favorite, a machine part in a 1940s factory. However, my most accomplished moment in my acting career was being cast in Matilda the Musical at New Stage Theater, a professional regional theater located in Jackson, Mississippi, which has a full season with 5 professional shows, including a musical. Yes, I had performed in multiple productions at that point, but never with a professional theater, one that was known across the community and was even able to pay their actors. Being considered in a professional production told me that I did have talent, that I wasn't just doing this all for fun, but that I could be depended on in such a vast experience. But you don't just start in the production. Again, the first step is the dreaded audition. I was in my junior year of high school. I already knew I'd be playing in my theater class's competition play, but I had a feeling I wouldn't have a large role that year. So, as I always did, I auditioned for New Stage Theater, this time for Matilda the musical. As you would expect, I was nervous. The musical needed a good deal of young actors, so this was a big opportunity to get my foot in the door. I remember my headshot scrunched in my fist as I waited for it to be my time on the stage, and the doubt swept in, making me think I wasn't good enough or this wasn't the right opportunity for me. It felt like I was drowning. But I took a deep breath, and once it was time, I gave the audition my best shot, projecting my voice to fill the entire room, while also showing a different side of myself with my monologue. And when stepping into that parking lot, I felt good after the audition. I thought maybe I had a chance this time. But I didn't get to hear the results straight away. I had to wait and wait and wait until finally I received the news. I had a callback. I had never been able to secure a callback from New Stage Theater before. I couldn't believe it. New Stage was considering me out of the number of people who auditioned. It wasn't over yet, though. I still needed to win over the director and the callback. And so, I prepared, reviewing music and lines over and over until they were just right. I was ready. They could tell. And the rest was history. I was cast as a part of the youth ensemble, a role that some people may think is not as big, but I didn't care for the spotlight. I had entered a new world, conquering my insecurities to reach this point, all by jumping the hurdle of the audition. I'm Emily Rutland for the Burg Podcast.
In our next essay, Claire Cadle recounts her first trip to New York and the sense of independence it brought her.
My entire life has been spent living somewhere in Mississippi. At 20 years old, the furthest I had ventured out was the Smoky Mountains. One evening, during the spring semester of 2024, I was at my friend Lauren's house studying for finals. We were sitting on her bedroom floor, procrastinating a little too much. Somehow, we ended up on the topic of traveling and how much we both wanted to do more of it. The next thing we knew, we were looking up safest hotels to stay in New York City. It was all very fast. One minute, we were researching fun things to do and places to see. The next, our plane tickets were booked. In the span of an hour, what I like to call my first big girl trip was being planned. It was a crazy feeling. I had never done anything like this before. Rather than telling my parents, hey, I kind of want to plan a trip to New York, I called them and said, I'm going to New York in a month. This trip was very liberating in a sense. It wasn't like I had never done anything interesting in my life before, but I realized all of the things I wanted to do and see in life were starting to become possibilities. Lauren and I got on the plane feeling very grown up. As we passed her old DS back and forth playing Super Mario Bros., it began to really set in. We were going to New York. The first day was a lot, I can't lie. There was so much to see and absorb, it was overwhelming. Our hotel room was the smallest room I have ever been in. Each night throughout the 7-day trip, we would swap bunk beds, so we both got to sleep on the top one. This room choice was very intentional. We really wanted the bunk beds. We spent the first day learning the subway systems. The day after that was when the real fun began. Our first stop was St. Patrick's Cathedral. Neither of us are Catholic, however, we both agreed it was one of the most beautiful things we had ever seen. I'm a sucker for a stained glass window, so I was pretty mesmerized. Following that, we went to the top of the Empire State Building, which was insane. A warm day in summer suddenly had a chill to it as the wind picked up the higher we went. Looking out over the entire city, seeing the Statue of Liberty on its little island, it was a crazy feeling. Lauren and I have both agreed that the best part of our trip was visiting the Met cloisters. Lauren as a lover of medieval history, and me who even now fantasizes about living in a castle one day. This was incredible. The architecture, the gardens, and don't get me started up again on the stained glass windows. There was a long time that we just sat in the garden and watched people walk through. We talked about how if we lived in New York, we would make the trip to the cloisters to do homework and study. It was a very peaceful stop in the city that never sleeps. While the events and all of the sightseeing experiences we had on this trip were incredible, I think for me, one of the memories I look back on and laugh a lot over was the night after we saw Six the Musical. Throughout the entire trip, up to this point, Lauren had been our navigator. I decided this night that I would give her a break and I would take us to our destination and back to the hotel. We got to the theater perfectly fine in about maybe 10 or 15 minutes. The musical was fantastic. We started our trip back. Obviously, we were talking while we walked. We were both experiencing New York for the first time. We had plenty to talk about. About 10 minutes in, we looked up and saw the cathedral again. We hadn't seen the cathedral on the way there. In my head, I thought, it must be taking us the scenic route. How nice. It was not so nice later, when we were 45 minutes in, with the sign of our hotel in sight as it began to rain, and I make the statement, this must be the back entrance or something. Lauren looks around and stops walking. She looks at me and says, this isn't our hotel, Claire. I had taken us to a hotel an hour walk away from our actual one. We decided that was my last time playing navigator, as we stood in the subway blending in with the rats as we were soaking wet. Before this trip, I had never felt like an adult, like I was actually on my own and my life was in my hands. This trip was really life-changing in that way. I realized I am my own person who can make my own decisions. I can go to New York if I want to. I can get on a boat to see the Statue of Liberty, or sit on the steps of the Metropolitan Art Museum feeling like I'm in Gossip Girl. I think about my trip to New York a lot. I think about it when I think about all the things I want to accomplish in life, and know that I am completely capable of doing it all on my own. So thank you, New York, for everything. I'm Claire Cadle for the Burg Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Burg Podcast. This podcast is produced by students in Dr. Dave Davies' MCJ 344 podcasting class in the School of Media and Communication at the University of Southern Mississippi. The producer for this season's episodes is Salaudin Ahmed. Our music is from Upbeat, cover art by Madison Calkins and Greta Graves. We'll see you next week on the Burg Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Suarez.